I hope they all leave here and make tons of money at the Power Four. You can talk to Ryan Day. You can talk to Chip Kelly. You can talk to Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban. I have pushed coaches to those guys, okay? I want them to climb the ladder because you know why? They're really doing it because they're passionate. But when they come in and it's about TikTok and Instagram and recruiting rankings and what the narratives around you and all this stuff, what you're telling me is that no, you're really doing this, especially at our level, because you just want to get the hell out of here and go to somewhere else.
Hey teammates, welcome to another episode of It's All About the Team, and we're fortunate to have the head coach of the University of Alabama, Birmingham, former Super Bowl champion, Coach Trent Dilfer. Welcome, Trent.
We really want them to see a life that's bigger than them.
And that's the hard thing for the young coaches right now. They said, well, tell me how you got into coaching. I said, well, no one else wanted to.
I like the consequences of best more than the consequences of how I feel. Because most of the time when I chase my feelings, my consequences suck.
When your best guys are the best guys and they work the hardest, you got a real chance.
Coach, so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I haven't had the chance to coach with you or coach you or any of those things, but I've tried to read up on your amazing career, and I can tell you're having an exhilarating time there at UAB, making a difference in a great city.
Exhilarating and humbling. You know, you go 7-17 over your first couple of years, and it's been a great. I feel bad that we haven't won, but personally it's been a great journey and something I've grown a lot from and learned a lot, and I think we're getting ready to turn the corner.
Well, you know, it's interesting. My first year as a head coach, Coach Dilfer, I was 2-9, but I felt like we were growing together as a team. My first year at Ohio State as the head coach, we were 7-5, which is probably not the best thing to be at Ohio State, but it was all about building a team and creating those relationships and learning that trust in one another, and you can feel it building. Now you need some good fortune at times. You need those breakthrough moments. You need those aha moments that the staff and the team realize, hey, here's what we got to do to become better. And so, you know, it's exciting that you're experiencing all that, and the exhilaration you'll feel when you see that it clicks the way you hoped will be special.
Yeah, well, I'm anticipating that, and I absolutely believe in all of that.
Well, you know, one thing that we've always tried to do here on It's All About the Team is to bring in folks who have been winners, but they've had battles. They've had moments where they didn't win. Most of my teams, some of their hard times is what propelled them to their great times, and so we just like to talk through what lessons you've learned along the way, and you've been in so many different avenues and so forth. But let's start out with Team Dilfer at home growing up. I happen to believe that the foundation of all good teams is what did they learn at home?
Yeah.
And what do we have to fill in the gaps, or what can we build on? And how about Team Dilfer?
What a great question. You don't get asked that very often. It's the team I'm most, I don't want to use proud, it's the team I've most invested in for sure. You know, we have 4 kids. Maddie, the oldest, who's now 29 and has 2 kids. Our son Trevin, who went to be with the Lord when he was 5.5. He had a heart defect that ended his time here on this earth early. He'd be 27. Tori, Victoria, who's 26, she's married, professional volleyball player, and she's now pregnant, so it'll be our 3rd grandkid. Awesome. And then our youngest, Delaney, married and is in ministry in South Alabama. So growing up, you know, my wife and I we started young. We started when we were 24, if my math's correct. We were early, I think our 2nd year in Tampa as players, and we really were mindset on trying to raise a really good family, and we didn't know what that meant. You know, we had really good mentors, we had really good people in our lives, and I think some principles that we learned early on helped guide our family. I've been asked to write all these parenting books, and I'm like, guys, the best thing I ever did for my kids is pray for them. They look at my girls and like, oh, you have great kids, you must be a great parent. I'm like, my wife and I look at each other and we're like, we know all the mistakes. We know all the times we've tried to mess them up or should have messed them up, and somehow they've become amazing adults, and we're amazing kids growing up. And I think the biggest thing is unconditional love. They knew mom and dad were not gonna divorce. We're both from divorced families. We've seen the damage of divorce. There was many times that, if we wanted to take the easy way, we would have gotten divorced. But I think the kids knew that mom and dad were going to be there. They were unconditionally loved, no matter what knucklehead things they did. It started with, hey, this does not define who you are. This is just part of the journey. And sure, you may be disciplined, but it doesn't affect how we feel about you. I think strict standards and guidelines, something I talk about a lot is first-time obedience. Your kids had to know you meant what you said. I think it's true in coaching too. The picture was painted to me was when they're toddlers and you're at the playground and they start, and I've talked to my team about this, about first-time obedience, as the toddlers at the playground and you're talking to a friend and the toddler takes off and you're like, huh, where's your toddler going? Well, then you see the street that your toddler's about to enter, and you can't get there in time to stop your toddler. If you yelled, hey, Maddie, stop, would they believe you? Is your voice the voice they trust the most in their life? And if you say something, do you mean it? Because if they don't believe you, that toddler may just go to the street, and we know the bad things that could happen. But if they do trust you and do honor and believe your voice is the primary voice in their life, and that voice matters and is there to protect them, keep them safe, guide them, then they'll listen. So that was a real big thing in our household growing up was, we're going to say it once, and we mean it. And we expect you to respond to that one-time messaging. And it doesn't always happen, but it helped them a lot, and it created a trust between us because we didn't abuse it either. We tried really hard as parents not to abuse that. Obviously pushing them towards a relationship with Christ, that's the foundation of our life, and we just really tried to provide an environment where that was attractive for them. We tried to model it as parents, tried to provide opportunities for them to explore that. And that, all three of them have all four of them have a vibrant relationship with Jesus. And then I think, we had a philosophy in our house, and it's become a coaching philosophy too. And I can't remember how I came up with it. We called it your awesome butt parenting. And what that meant was we were always going to start with affirmation. So we were going to find the thing that they're awesome at. So, hey coach, man, you're doing an awesome job on this podcast. You're killing it. People all over the country are being better team builders because of you. ... But, hey, we got to get the eye contact a little bit better, coach. We got to have a little more juice. Let's fix the setting in the background. Let's get the production team on board now. Let's add some bells and whistles to this thing. You know what I mean? So I'm just using an example, but that was how we parented. So, hey, Tori, man, that was such great effort in the game. Man, you were diving after balls. You were getting after it. You were encouraging your teammates. All these. So now all of a sudden they're full. They feel affirmed. Okay, Dad sees it. Mom sees that I'm trying to do that. ... But hey, man, you can't be hanging your head when you have a bad set. And hey, when that coach is talking to you in the timeout, make sure you make eye contact. Hey, on that, you got to communicate better with your outside hitter. You're setting a go and they're approaching like it's a regular outside pin set. Let's have a little bit better communication. Well, all of a sudden they were engaged and they were listening to us because we always tried to start with affirmation. Academics, relationships, sports, faith journey, whatever it was, your awesome butt was a huge key. And then John Gordon just convinced me to write a book on this one. I think maybe the best thing we did, and I give all the credit to my oldest daughter, Maddie, and this will be a book here in the next year, was a thing called Coach's Hat. I think anytime parents out there, if you had success as an athlete or a business person or whatever your field is, you don't know it, but your kid gets confused between I'm mom and dad or I'm coach trying to make you like me. And they're going to try to please you. They're going to try to be an entrepreneur if you're an entrepreneur. They're going to try to be a professional athlete if you're a professional athlete. They're going to try to be a whatever if you're really good at it. And they're going to tell you no, but deep down, they're going to want to be it. So Maddie, I'll give you a story, and then I'll let you do all the talking because you're smarter than me.
No.
But this was, I can remember like it was yesterday. She was 14. She was a freshman at this private school in Northern California, Valley Christian, a great school. Well, when we were in the Bay Area, she was an up-and-coming kind of star athlete. She was like the second-ranked breaststroker in the region. She just started playing volleyball. She was long. She was athletic. She was very gifted. And that's a volleyball hotbed in Northern California. And there's a school, a great school, by the way. I admire them a lot. They had won like 10 straight state championships. And then there was another school in the conference that had won a couple and was really good. And they were recruiting her. Like, you got to come to this school. She'll be a star, blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me when she goes, no, Dad, I want to go to a school and make it a champion. So she went to a school that never won a league game. And they're so bad that she's starting as a true freshman. And it was a tough summer of training camp. And, she's like, oh, my gosh, you go from junior high to high school. You're a freshman. You're starting. You're the setter who's like the quarterback of volleyball. And I pick her up one day, and she's got the alligator tears coming down. And she didn't melt down very much. She was pretty stoked. She was mature beyond her years, and she just hits the 12-year-old, meltdown. This girl's mean. They're saying things I don't like. I don't understand it. It's inappropriate. They don't work hard. I mean, she's just going through the laundry list of all the reasons why this is so hard. And what do, Coach? I'm going to fix it, right? I'm a fixer.
That's right.
That's what we do. So I got all the answers, man. I go back to our family's core values. I jump into how to handle these conflicts. I jump in, and she looks at me. She goes, Daddy, I just need you to be Daddy. I just need you to hear me and let me cry. And I went, oh, my gosh. And I melted. And I'm on the highway in Northern California. I look over and I said, I am so sorry. I don't ever want to make this mistake again. How can we fix this? And she looks up on my dashboard. And as a bald guy, you always have a hat because I can't get this beautiful dome sunburn, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a hat on my dashboard. She goes, well, Dad, I like it when you coach me sometimes, but why don't you put on the hat if you're going to coach me?
Ooh.
Boom. Coach's hat was birthed. And it became the way we were always mom and dad without the hat. Like, we had to default to mom and dad, and there's so many times we wanted to coach. There's so many times you want to fix it. So we weren't fixers until they asked us to put on the hat. And that's the key. We couldn't just put on the hat and be like, hey, Tori, I'm putting on the hat, listen to me. No, we were mom and dad. And mom and dad's role in their life was very defined. We'd have family meetings about it. Hey, this is who we're going to be. And if we mess up, you can hold us accountable to this. But if you need us to coach you up, fix something, give you advice, whatever it is, ask us to put on the hat. And it was common. Hey, Dad, I need the hat. Boom. I'd physically put on the hat. And then there was a set of rules with the hat. The set of the rules was like, hey, listen, you snotty little brat. Quit having a bad attitude with your teammates. Mm-hmm. Or hey, your effort on the beach court today was dog crap. I remember getting Tori and Maddie in the car after a beach tournament that they got smoked in. And they didn't lose very often. And we get in the car and they can tell I'm hot. I mean, I'm not saying anything, I'm dad, but I'm hot. Like, it was a total hijack of the Dilfer family values. Anybody that knows us knows the one thing the Dilfers do is they are full tilt all the time. Effort, energy, attitude, focus. That was our core values. And it was never win every sprint. I have a daughter that never lost a sprint in her history of competitive athletics, right? You always take an extra rep in the weight room. You always do, like, that was just who we were. And we get in the car and they're like, they know. And Maddie goes, "Put on the hat, Dad." And I put on the hat, and I ripped their tails from going over Highway 17. We're at the beach, and we started climbing Highway 17, and I don't think I stopped till we got in the parking lot. And they owned it. They got out of that car. They asked for my forgiveness. They went and asked for their mom's forgiveness. They talked to their baby sister that wasn't there. They said, "Don't ever do what we did today. We're self-pity, feeling sorry for ourselves, blah, 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 blah." We get to do this. Like, we're not entitled to go to the beach and play beach volleyball, and like, how spoiled can, and they're saying, we get to do this as an honor. Delaney, don't ever make the mistake we made. And it was such a beautiful thing because they had their parents and they had their coaches in the house. And I think they're starting to use it with their kids. I think it's a really beautiful way you can differentiate with your kids on, hey, yeah, I want to help you as a coach. I got some things, I've learned some things, I've failed enough, I've climbed some mountains. I got some good stuff for you, but I want you to ask me for it. I'm not just going to throw it up on you. But I tell you what, you're hurting, I'm here to hold you. You need to cry, I'm here to listen. So.
It's that is, I've never heard the coach's hat, but I'm just thinking through when you talk about how we dealt with our players. One of the things we challenged our staff was love the performer, critique the performance.
Yep.
And you've really got a chance to help them grow if they are coming to you for both. If they're coming to you to figure out who they are and what's bigger than the game, and then when they come to you for you to put your hat on. Now, let's sit down and watch that. As soon as the video goes on, the hat goes on, right? Or we go into the weight room, the hat goes on. But probably our teams were built on the times when the hat wasn't on.
Yes.
Just to use your hat example.
Yep.
People talk all the time about what was the key to some of your good teams and so forth. Yeah, they were talented and all that stuff, and yeah, they watched the film and all that, but it was about everything else.
Yep.
They knew we loved them, and they knew that we were, our goal was to help them be ready for the rest of their life. We're going to be ready for the game. We're not going to apologize for that. We plan on winning every time, but making that delineation between, hey, I love you dearly, and even when you screw up. A high school coach here in Ohio gave me a great line one time. He said, hey, if you're going to go to the banquet with your player, you got to go to court with your player.
Yep. Amen.
Right? Because, hey, that's part of the deal. And so what high school did you go to out in California?
Aptos High School, APTOS.
Okay. Think back. Give us a team lesson.
Okay, I got one. Your best players have to be the hardest workers.
Amen.
I've never seen a team that was successful that their best players were not their hardest workers. And I was by far the best athlete in the school at every sport. And my stepdad had been the head coach at my high school for years. One of his assistants took over when I got into high school because my stepdad did not think it was appropriate for the stepdad to coach the stepson with my dad still living in the city. It was a great move by my stepdad. As I look back at it by now, I'm like, what a selfless move. And he went to the local junior college to be the offense coordinator because he loved coaching, he loved impacting kids. And then his assistant, Jamie Townsend, took over. And Jamie was like an uncle to me growing up. Like, I remember being 10 years old watching WWF and wrestling in the living room with him, and he would pin me down and tickle me. I mean, he was like an uncle. And I totally took advantage of that early on. And I thought I was different than everybody else. And my stepdad saw a practice without me knowing and got Jamie, Coach Townsend, and ripped him a new one. Like, why are you letting him get away with that? You know, he's not that way at basketball. He's not that way at golf. He's not that way at baseball. He's not that way at track. He's not that way playing one-on-one with me in the front yard. Like, that's a different Trent. And that's on you for not holding him to a higher standard. So that like switch. Next thing I know, I'm running laps while the team's practicing. Next thing you know, I'm doing up downs. I'm lifting in his. We didn't have a weight room at my high school. This is 1986. It was like a bench, one of those complex machines, and a one rack in his office. So next thing you know, I'm in his office squatting and benching after practice. Now I'd already lifted that day, but I'm doing it again. And I learned really quick, too much is given, much is expected. And I think that is a principle in team building that doesn't get talked about enough now. And we can get into rev share and all this other stuff. Now I think it's even more important. You're paying a kid significantly more than a kid of his position. I expect more from you, not just in performance, but in investment. And I learned very quick that if I was going to be the best, then I had to outwork everybody because everybody was looking at me. And man, I go to that Ravens team. I've never seen anybody work harder than, well, I'll give just a few names, and most of them are in the Hall of Fame. I've never seen anybody work harder than John Lynch. He's probably number one. I don't think I've ever been around an athlete that invested more in his body and his craft than John Lynch. Ray Lewis is close. Shannon Sharp is close. I'd put those three kind of in the same deal. Rod Woodson. There's more. Derek Brooks. I mean, these guys, they just worked harder than everybody else. A name from a blast, Hardy Nickerson, who was a great inside linebacker. I mean, these guys would run on top of running, lift on top of lifting, watch film on top of watching film, take care of their bodies on top of mandatory treatment time. Like, whatever you were asked to do, they doubled it or tripled it. And they were the best players, too. They made the most money. They went to the most Pro Bowls. Now they're in the Hall of Fame. Like, that's just a principle that must come back in modern day college football. Too much is given, both God-giftedness and now economic gifts. More is expected, period. This is not negotiable. This is not an argument. This is not a debate. This is not something we can toss around like, yeah, but no. More is expected of you. And I've seen it work. And I think coaches, there's some great coaches in our conference. I think John Summerall does a great job with this in our conference in Tulane. He gets it, and his best players work the hardest. And that's kind of what we're looking for.
We heard that constantly. I was at Youngstown State a long time, so we had a chance to be out at the Bay Area with the Niners a lot with Mr. DeBartolo and Carmen Policy and those guys. And obviously we were out there talking about how do you win all these Super Bowls? I mean, how do you – and then they would just point to Jerry Rice and Roger Craig and Joe Montana and Ronnie Lott. And they said, when your best guys are the best guys and they work the hardest, you got a real chance. And there's no question. And it sounds like Coach Townsend gave you that first lesson.
Yes, he did.
And so was Coach Sweeney at Fresno State when you went?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Legend.
Legend.
Legendary.
People need to talk more about him because you look at kind of who coached, he's Jeff Tedford, who is a great coach, great college coach, incredibly accomplished. He has a tree now, but he will, and Jeff's one of my mentors. It was probably 85% Jim Sweeney. He when he went to Oregon, Jeff coached me. I was his first round quarterback of the 6. Then he goes to Oregon and he coaches Akili, Joey, and who was the first round pick? Joey was there was another quarterback, and then Aaron Rodgers and the other guy at Cal, like all these first round picks. But it was all built off Sweeneyisms. It was all built off Sweeney's core values. So much what I'm doing today, I can't believe it. But, Kevin, his youngest son, Jim's youngest son, is one of my best friends. And just this year, in fact, it is literally to my right, he sent me a box. After his dad died, he went and found a bunch of old manuscripts and notebooks and this and that. And he actually sent them to me because I was rebuilding our core values here. And I wanted to make sure I was in alignment with Coach Sweeney. But the toughest son of a gun on the planet I mean, that dude was so tough, but loved us. You know, you remember Prop 48. Do you educate people on Prop 48 ever?
I do.
Good.
I do. Constantly.
Good, because I have a great Prop 48 story. So 1990 is my first year at Fresno, and I roll into Fresno. Jim was a huge Prop 48 guy, massive. And we had like 11 props. And I think they had to get a 3.0 their first semester, if I'm not mistaken, to even stay eligible. Now, some of these kids never went to school. Some of these kids from South Central and Riverside and all that stuff, they didn't know what going to school was. Yep. I had gangbangers on my team. And by the way, some of my dearest friends to this day. But Jim loved those young men, and it was more about getting them a college degree and teaching them life lessons and taking them out of the bad situations they were in. 7 of them played in the NFL with me. No, sorry, I'm the 7th. 6 of them plus me from that group. Wow. 6 Prop 48s and me played in the NFL. Like, these guys shouldn't have been going. Today, they'd be at JC, right? They couldn't even get in.
Right.
They're at Fresno State. They make it. They end up thriving academically. They're good citizens, and they're ballers. They end up getting drafted in the 3rd round, 5th round, 6th round, playing in the NFL for, at least having a cup of coffee, and make generational wealth because Jim would bring them in, and that tough love, that just relentless tough love, what just poured out of him. And he held his coaches, man. I mean, and I default to this sometimes being a little too hard on coaches, but just the demand of the coach to be constantly connected to his position group, constantly, 365. And we didn't have cell phones, but like handwritten notes, checking in on the apartment, picking you up if you had too much to drink, you name it. Like, your coach was your primary life source. And Jim demanded it. And if you messed up as a kid, you know who got it first? This is the Bill Walsh thing. And it was a Jim Sweeney thing. The position coach got it way before the kid got it.
Hey, that one happened on the east side of the country, too. Woody Hayes. If you didn't know it's 10 o'clock, where is Mike Tomzak? What class is he in?
Yep.
You better have it in your pocket. And it's interesting, because I'm engaged in a lot of education workforce things now here in the state of Ohio, and talking about the fact that we've got too many kids on the sidelines. We don't have enough of our talent to fill all the opportunities we have in our workforce. And I said, what's funny is, as coaches, we always had a better graduation rate than the rest of the student body. Mm-hmm. And as coaches, we had a better job placement rate, because we grabbed them by the hand or the throat or whatever it was that you needed to grab, and you made them understand what it was going to take to get there. And right now, we just let people not excel. And I can't remember how long Prop 48 lasted in terms of being able to bring them in and sit them for that year and all that kind of thing. But one of the things I talk often about in Prop 48 is when they made that 48H form for what courses you had to take to be eligible or you would prop, they would not allow anyone to take any technical courses. So you couldn't have wood shop, you couldn't have electronics, you couldn't have metal shop. And here we are 40 years later, 39 years later, we don't have any carpenters, we don't have any plumbers. Some of my best players at Miami of Ohio were industrial arts majors who went on and very successful in home building companies and remodeling companies. Anyway, so Prop 48 is, if people understood that, it gave a path to some kids who didn't know, and you could give them that 1-year course as to here's how you make it in life.
Yep.
But unfortunately today, nothing is a building thing like it was in the day, because kid all of a sudden starts playing, and I'm going to go on the portal. But anyway, we'll get on that different thing. So lesson number 1 from Sweeney was expectations on everyone?
I would say lesson number 1 was probably what you said. Love the player, critique the performer. I'd probably, in your words, I bet you it was very similar to that. He deeply loved us as people, no matter what we did. But I mean, nobody coached harder as it came down to
Did you have him all 4 years?
I did, yes.
Oh,
he left,
okay.
I think, a few years after I went to the NFL. I want to say late 90s is when Pat Hill came in and took over, another great Fresno coach. But
Yep.
Pat, I think my guess, if you're to wiki it, would be 99 is when Jim stepped away.
Okay. Didn't he leave Fresno and come back to Fresno?
Jeff did. No, Jim left.
Oh,
Jim
Jeff
retired.
okay.
Yep, Jim retired.
Okay.
Pat Hill did his thing. Jeff then later coached at Fresno, left Fresno because of a heart thing, and then came back to Fresno.
Okay. Off script, but Jeff was one of the ones, I was a quarterback coach, and Jeff was one of the ones we studied from. I mean, he was, whether it was Paul Hackett or Tedford or, but anyway, so now you're going on to the NFL. Who was your first coach, Sam?
Sam Weish.
Yeah. Did he ever do that grip thing with you where he fought over a ball because his hands were so big?
Oh, yeah. And I have 10s, so I have big old meat claws too, so I could actually –
You could hang with him?
I could hang with him. He would get me, but I would hang with him, yeah. The lesson learned from Sam was be innovative and keep it fun. Be innovative and keep it fun. He was always looking for something somebody else wasn't doing so the defense couldn't practice against you as much as they practice against everybody else. It's one of our core values too, is ruin their practice. You know what I mean? Like we want to be innovative. We want to be sound, technical, not tricky, but be innovative constantly so that defensive, when you're doing route rec or you're doing, inside run fits on a defensive practice that, you should probably do inside zone and outside zone and GT and GY and a G play and a pin pull, but you're going to have to do about 6 other fits too because you don't know what we're going to run that week. Like we're really going to recycle an offense from previous weeks and there's a teaching methodology around that is very difficult to do. That, and then he did want to have fun. Now, we frustrated him. He took a bad job in Tampa. We were so bad. I remember getting to Tampa in '94 and saying, like, I got 8 college teammates that are better than the players playing with me in the NFL. Like, we were really bad. And Sam got frustrated, so he lost his temper a little too often. He had some regrets later, and so did I, just how we handled some things. But boy, when it was going well, he had a good old time, man. Meetings were fun, they were energetic, they were innovative, practices were fun. I really wish I
study him when he was at the Bengals.
Yeah.
I can't remember when that was, but that's when we used to go down and study him.
Yep.
And he was always fun.
Yep.
So who came in after him? Tony?
Tony. Yep.
Okay, greatest lesson from Tony. I'm sure there's a lot of them.
Oh, gosh, it's endless with
Right.
Tony. Something I've really struggled with, I actually called him. He came and spoke to my team last year when we played USF, and I said, Coach, I got to get better at this, man. I've always admired this about you, but I haven't been able to do it as a player, and I have yet to be able to do this as a coach, is being matter of fact without elevating temper. He was just so stoic in his approach, and he could talk to you like this, but with a knife with it. And it's something I wish I was better at. I'm animated. I'm too much, and I sometimes intimidate a player because of how animated I am, how boisterous I am, how charismatic, sometimes angry. And I think players kind of go into a shell sometimes, where Tony was just direct and matter of fact, and it was not a thing about you as a person, it was about your job, and you need to fix this, and you need to understand that. And then his character, like you got to lead with character. Like he had impeccable character, and what do you do when the lights are off? What do you do when nobody's watching? Fantastic teacher. Him and Holmgren, because you're going to get to Holmgren, very similar defensive mastermind, offensive mastermind. They could take the highly complex and make it very simple. And I think that's maybe the biggest thing I stole from both of them that I think my coaches say I'm really good at, because they get frustrated. They get frustrated that I don't get into the weeds too often. And I'm like, no. If they get it from 30,000 feet, if I can make this simple where it hits their brain, then you guys can go dig a little deeper, plow the soil a little more, get into the weeds and really detail it out. But if you start there, it's overwhelming. They're going to tap out. Their brains are going to explode. So from Tony and Mike, I kind of learned how to teach on taking something super, super complex and how can I make this the simplest form of it and then tell a story around it, have an analogy, a metaphor, something that touches their heart, where it clicks, where they have the aha moment of, oh, I know what he's talking about with that crazy play that has 13 words. Then let my brilliant coaches go kind of do the rest, because they're already in. They already understand what we're trying to accomplish. Now the coaches can go drill a little deeper.
You know, all the great players I've ever asked them, you know, what was the key to, you know, making it in the NFL or whatever, so many of them would talk about the fact that you've got to slow the game down so that you can make good decisions. And think about that. The same is true in life, right? You got to slow the game down so you can make good decisions, so you understand the game, slow it down. And, you know, I've seen some really bright people not be able to slow it down. And I've seen some guys that were Prop 48, you know, that had that ability that when, you know, the bullets are flying and the bodies are flying around, that they could slow the game down and make good decisions.
Well, Coach,
and Tony gave you that feel.
He gave me that feel, and he gave me this line too that I've really built, you know, part of my life off of, and it has not worked for 2 years, but it's been one of the core foundations of this program, and I believe it's going to be why we turn it, is choices, decisions, consequences. And it starts off the field. Like we're giving all these choices in life. Like I can choose to spend time on this, or I can choose not to. I can choose to be out too late. I can choose to go to bed. You know, I have all these things. And then I got to make a decision that is best over how I feel. So best over feelings. And guess what? Regardless, there's going to be a consequence. But if you train yourself off the field to choose best over your feelings, so to make a decision for what is best over how I feel, right? Guess what you're training? You're training 4th and 1. You're training 3rd and 6. You're training 3rd and goal. You're training 2-minute. You're training 1st and 10 in the second quarter, and you're already up 14. If you're a quarterback, why would I take unnecessary risk? Like you're training your decisions between the lines as well. Because what you're really training yourself is, I feel one way, but I know the other way's best. And I'm gonna make a decision for best, because I like the consequences of best more than the consequences of how I feel. Because most of the time when I chase my feelings, my consequences suck. And these young people are starting to realize, hey, it felt pretty good to have that 7th beer, didn't it? Man, you were rolling. You had fun. Man, you were up on top of the bar. All the girls thought but you forgot that we had 6 a.m. winning edge the next morning. So as you're throwing up as we're in our second mat drill, that's the consequence of choosing to follow how you felt at 1 a.m. What would have been best is 11:30, probably go to bed and know that you had 6 a.m. mat drills.
Hey teammates, I want to tell you about a project we're working on with Youngstown State University. One of the ways Ellen and I have decided to give back is through the Tressel Institute for Leadership and Teamwork. We've collected a set of successful business and nonprofit leaders to serve as guest servant leaders in partnership with the Sokolov Honors College to teach university students teamwork, leadership, and personal skills. We teach from a foundation built on gratitude, excellence, hope, love, and selflessness. If you're a young person or parent helping to search for a unique college experience, you can learn more at tresselinstitute.ysu.edu or ysu.edu. Links will be provided in the show notes.
One of our early guests on It's All About the Team is a young man that runs a bunch of restaurants, and he's got the largest prison ministry education system in our country, and he's a culinary guy, and his whole thing with his guys, and we're dealing with football players. This is dealing with people with life and death, right?
Yeah.
And he said, the bottom line is you have to come up with a more compelling yes. So it's more compelling yes to go home at 11:30 than stand on the bar and have that. It's a more compelling yes. And same thing you're saying, what I want to do best, he took it as, I've got to convince these guys who have made a lot of decisions, they were compelled to go do whatever they did, and they ended up in prison and so forth.
Yeah.
I've got to train them to learn to take the most compelling yes.
I love it.
And that's what it's all about. So you left Tampa and you went over to the Ravens.
Yep.
Was that Coach Billick?
It was.
Oh man, you've been around some quarterback guys.
Yeah. Brian's greatest thing I learned from him was managing personalities. And you got to remember who was on that staff. Marvin Lewis, Jack Del Rio, Rex Ryan, Matt Kavanaugh. There's some others I'm forgetting. Wade Harmon, like some legends of coaching in the NFL. And you had those personalities. Then you had, monster personalities on the team. Tony Saragusa, myself, Ray Lewis, Shannon Sharp, Kadri Ismail, Rod Woodson, Chris McAllister, Dwayne Starks, Jonathan Ogden, Hall of Famer, massive personality, Jamal Lewis, Priest Holmes. People forget we had Priest and Jamal in the same backfield. So you had egos, you had money, you had pelts on the wall, you had charisma, you had conviction. Like you had Rod Woodson had no problem standing up in a team meeting and be like, that's BS. Like, don't teach us to do that. That's wrong. Imagine being in a defensive install meeting teaching some type of split safety run fit, and you're teaching it wrong, and Rod Woodson says, well, that sucks, Coach Del Rio. That's going to get us beat. How does that work? Right? That was the daily dialogue in our building. Like, we would yell and scream and fight each other at practice because we wanted to win so bad. Scout team, I was a backup when we started that year. Me and Brandon Stokely are shredding the greatest defense of all time in practice, and we're talking crap the whole time, because we're big person. I'd never been a backup quarterback. I'm in my 7th year. I've been to Pro Bowls, gone to the playoffs, and now I'm a backup quarterback. I'm like, you guys, you're in the AFC. I've been in the NFC. Well, who do you think you are? And just the managing of all that junk, Billick was a master at managing personalities. And it was pretty clear. You treat everybody fair, but you never treat everybody the same. And I think, and Marvin ended up used that for years as he was a head coach. But I think it's really important now that, by the way, our kids are professional athletes too.
Right.
That we got to treat everybody fair. There's got to be a standard, an operating procedure, and it goes back to your love the player. Like, you're all equal as it relates to how we care for you, right? Maybe how we talk to you, maybe how we're available for you, right? How we assist you. But listen now, we're not treating everybody the same. Right. Homeboy makes $20,000 a month. You make $1,400. And that's a bad thing. Your fine system there is a lot more than his. You're expected to do more. You make more money. The ball goes to you. You touch the ball every time. I'm going to treat you differently than the guy that's over there, the third guard in the game, is going to get treated a little differently than the guy that touches the ball all the time. And it blows my mind when coaches can't grasp this part of it, because I've seen both sides of it. I've been on the other end of it. That, yeah, we want to be treated fairly, but we're not the same. We're not the same. There are guys that are helping you win ball games. There's guys that are helping fill those stands. There's guys that are helping create that revenue share of millions of dollars. And guess what? You're not one of those. So I'm still going to love you. Or I'm still going to care for you, but you're not going to get treated the same as that guy.
Yep. And Brian seemed to me, I only met him once or twice, he just seemed to be intellectual, even-keeled, had an aura.
Yeah.
You know, he had an aura about him, and really quite a different personality than the next one I'm going to go to is Coach Holmgren. To me, those two guys are totally different. Both, you know, offensive gurus, you know, and all that stuff. What was the team building lesson from Coach Holmgren?
Well, one, by nature, Mike is a teacher. You know, he grew up a teacher. Like, he was literally I think he was a high school teacher. He was a high school teacher.
We don't have enough coaches, by the way, who have learned how to teach.
Exactly.
Now, that's the dinosaur in me talking. You know, they knew how to play.
No, you're right.
But they need to know how to teach. But anyway, go with Mike.
Well, I'll co-sign with you on that. Too many either think because they played they can coach,
right,
or because they grew up in a lab of X's and O's and watched a bunch of cool videos and did a bunch of camps that they can coach.
Right.
That's the problem we have right now in coaching. Teachers are the best coaches.
Yeah. The purest form of teaching, I used to always brag, because we teach them 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
The chemistry teacher, when the bell rings, they're done.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It is 24/7, 365. Right. So Mike was a teacher, but in terms of building a team, you know, he had for a guy that didn't spit fire all the time, there was some Jim Sweeney there toughness now. Like, for a guy that likes to throw it around and, you know, had this aura of loosey-goosey, there was an inside run, 8-minute period mentality to him, you know, that I don't think enough people appreciate. He was a tough mother trucker now. Like, it was toughness, it was grit, it was old school. Now, he could take old school and make it look new school, but I've never asked Mike this question. He's a great man. I've never asked him this question, though, like, what was the hill you would die on? And I bet you it was toughness. Like, it was flat toughness. He focused more on the offensive line than he did the quarterback. He focused more on linebacker fits than he did corners and secondary play. Like, and he would run the dang ball now. Like, that's the other thing too is Mike wanted to run the football and stop the run, and he believed that took a certain level of toughness to do that. Fantastic teacher, but a tough man. Mike and I had a great relationship, beyond great, until the end when he was super mad at me that I asked for a trade. But we had a great relationship because he saw the high school coach's son, the educator, the toughness. You know, I'd come off multiple injuries. You know, we were cut kind of from the same cloth.
You know, the one thing I've noticed about all those guys that came through the Niners, McKittrick seemed to be the untalked about soldier, and all those guys, you know, whether it was Walsh or whether it was Mike or whomever, you could tell if you went to a practice there that the ruthless way they played offensive line, I just thought their offensive line play was pretty special.
I agree.
And I think it affected, you know, whether it be who's the young guy there now, Shanahan's dad. You know, I thought Shanahan's dad was, you know, had that toughness thing. And I swear a lot of it had to do their time with McKittrick.
I agree. And listen, I'm looking at my big whiteboard over here right now. And my number one goal for this year is to build the gnarliest glass-eating offensive line in the country.
Right.
I don't even know how talented. I couldn't tell you anything about their talent. But I want to get. I'm the son. My stepdad was an offensive line coach. I grew up on the back of the blocking sled. Like, I was the kid going wee, wee when they hit the 5-man sled. And I just think it's a lot. Now, there's some teams do a great job at it, but like, there is a nastiness, gnarliness to great teams that starts with the offensive line. And I would say the other piece of that is special teams. You know, go watch and see how many decleats there are in special teams, how many game-changing blows that you feel in your bones on the sideline. If your identity is your offensive line and your special teams violence, you're going to have a pretty good football team.
Yep. So then you headed off to Romeo, Crennel, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, Romeo. So I
With the
asked
Brownies.
for. Yep, I
Back
asked
to
for
my hometown.
By the way, I love my time in Cleveland. People.
Awesome.
I'm one of that list of like 37 bad Cleveland Browns quarterbacks, but we look back on that. I guess I was there about a year. I got traded that following offseason because of an injury, and we love Westlake. We love Berea. The facility in Berea.
Yep.
I got over to the east side a few times to play some golf and meet some people. I like the people. I love the loyalty and the depth of care that they have for their teams. I really enjoyed Cleveland. I wish I could. I played decent until I got hurt. I really wish I could have helped turn it around. It's one of the regrets I have. But Romeo, here's what I learned. Romeo did so many things well. He does not get enough. He is one of the Belichick disciples that went away, and I really think did it well, except for one thing: be careful who you hire. I think we're ultimately defined by who we hire.
That's right.
And I made the mistake the first 2 years, and I knew it. Like I knew better than to do what I did. You got to make sure the people you hire have the intellectual, the emotional, and the vision, capacity that you have, and they fit you, and they got to see the world through your lens. You can teach them some things, but they got to see the football world, the development world, like the big vision they got to be married to. Or they're really young and you just teach it to them. But if they come in with a certain lack of football intelligence, emotional intelligence, or see the bigger thing going on different than you, it's not going to work. And unfortunately, he hired a few coaches. He had some great coaches on that staff: Mel Tucker, Grantham, Rip Shear. There's others too. If people watch, I'm sorry for forgetting your names, but he had some bad ones, man. Really, like the worst of the coaches I've ever been around in my life. And they just rotted our team from within. And it really set him up for failure. Because I think Phil Savage was doing a pretty good job. If Phil would have had more time, if Phil would have had more time, and Romeo had the staff that was in place, there were some good pieces there. Like if you go look at where we all went after, a lot of guys were very successful and played for good teams and had really good careers. But as it was there, Romeo couldn't get us to where he needed to get us because he was being poisoned from within. And he didn't have people that could keep up with him intellectually. And there is an intellectual capacity that you have to have in this game as it grows. This is no longer the veer, right? It's run the veer, stop the veer. This is no longer two back, split formation, inline tight end, two wide receivers. This is no longer, one high, three versions of one high, two versions of two high, strong side overload, weak side overload. Like that, those days are gone. And those that want to stay in that world aren't going to survive. And unfortunately, he had some coaches that just thought that was that. So we'd be in games and teams knew what we were doing. I'd look at Romeo like, poor guy, he doesn't know the lack of sophistication that's going on here, and it's going to come back on him.
Sure. I'll give you my best building a staff story that I learned just as I was going to be a head coach. So I was, 32 years old, going to a 1AA, Youngstown State. The athletic director was a former Division III, he was a former high school coach, then a Division III coach, and then became an AD, Joe Malmazer. And so I come in there, and you could have 6 coaches back then in 1AA. And, I was 32. I was ready. I was always had my list of if I ever became a head coach, guys, and this and that. And he sat me down. He said, have you thought about your staff? And I said, yeah, I thought of. And he said, well, let me tell you a little story. He said, if you want to build a good staff, you have to think about it in terms of how you would build a good house. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you gotta have a contractor to come in and excavate and so forth, and you're going to have a good electrician and a good plumber and a good drywall and all those kinds of things. And he said, you know, the last thing you want to do is go out and find all these hotshot companies that say they're really good and they're brilliant and they're electrician stuff or their plumbing stuff and so forth. He said, you got to hire a contractor who knows what the next job up is, and you have to have the electrician make sure that he knows his time and place, and the plumber's got to be, and he said, you have to have a cohesive group of people building that house that understand the house you want to end up with.
Yeah.
And he said, so don't be in a hurry and don't get caught up in someone's resume. You got to find out if they're the kind of contractor or electrician or plumber that's going to end up with a good house. And I thought, ooh.
That's so good.
And you know what? It was good advice.
Well, it's
because you
such
can
great.
get in a hurry.
Oh, Coach, I messed up so bad. I mean, and unfortunately, this institution suffered from my mistakes. Frank Reich actually. So when I decided, I didn't really want to do this. My wife kind of pushed me to do it, and I'm glad she did. But there was this moment of time where I was fine doing what I was doing. I was loving coaching high school football. We built something pretty cool, and life was great. My daughters were near me. I didn't need the money. You know, I didn't go do this for more money. So that's kind of good. And she's like, no, we need another mountain to climb. You're at your best when things are hard. This has gotten too easy. You need something really hard. I said, okay, that's fair. I mean, right behind me, you're going to see do hard things and be uncomfortable. They're like my two core values.
Yep.
So she's speaking my language, and she's right. And I started texting and calling my network of friends in coaching, and it's vast. I mean, you can imagine, all the teams I played for, and the ESPN, the 9 years of ESPN. I mean, all I did was talk to coaches, GMs, whatnot. So massive network of what I would call friends in the coaching industry, and started hitting them all up. Okay, give me the most important, blah, 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 blah. And I started taking notes. I'm a red ink taking notes guy. And Frank Reich, take your time hiring your staff. You will regret it if you don't. And he kind of gave me a similar kind of story.
Sure.
And sure enough, okay, cool, Frank, thank you so much. Write it down. And then absolutely do a 180. Oh, right. That guy's available? Okay, you're in. Oh, you sound cool. I dealt with you when you were recruiting my kids at Lipscomb. You're in. Yeah. And I just started, and I ended up going, what have I done? And none of them are bad people. They're all really good people.
Not the right fit.
Just not the right fits. And it just was 2 years of torture knowing that I had and by the way, I put them in a bad position. They didn't fail me, I failed them.
Right.
Because I put them in a position they weren't ready to fill. Now they think they are, but they're not. So it all comes back on the head guy. I hate it when the assistants get blamed for stuff. It's on us, man. We're 7-17 because the guy you're looking at here, not because these other guys. Now it's my job to now rebuild it, which I have, and build it truly like a house. Took a ton of time. And it is, May 23rd? I hired a coach a week ago. That's unheard of, but I had this one spot that I think is really, really, really important for this year's team. And I interviewed so many people and talked to so many things and prayed about it and thought about it and watched the staff dynamics grow and finally said, okay, this guy's perfect.
Right.
And I waited it out, and he has been. He's been here for a week, and he's the perfect fit for what I was looking for. So I hate that we have to learn from our mistakes, especially at 53. But man, that is such a good thing. If anybody asks if I end up having any success in this thing, it's going to be one of the Mount Rushmore things I teach people, which is, hey, let me show you how I did it, and then don't do it that way. Do the opposite of how I did it. And you're so right about the resumes. And here's the other thing I'll give any coach out there. One, it's advice to you if you fit into one of these buckets, and two, it's if you're hiring. Got to remember now, and you're this way too, we grew up in the dirt. I always call it, we grew up in football in the dirt, right? Yellow school bus, in the dirt, that's how we grew up. And I think everybody that coached back then was a passion coach. If you had two buckets of coaching, well, you had one bucket of coaching, really, it was the passion coach. Because even the NFL guys weren't making that much money.
Right, yeah.
So like
No
it didn't
question.
matter what
No
level you were at, you were doing it because you were passionate
broke.
about
Yep.
coaching. You were broke.
You were broke. Yep.
I can't tell you how many millionaires now tell the story of, for 4 years, I couldn't eat. Like I literally didn't have food to eat. I had to go his house or do this or do that or work an extra job to get money from McDonald's. Like we're not talking broke. We're talking broke. So they could be passionate about coaching because they would give up everything so they could coach. So you have your passion bucket coach. Unfortunately, and I don't know when it turned, my guess would be early 2000s, another bucket came up, the ambition coach. He's coaching to climb the ladder. Now, I think you can be both. I think there's a lot of great ones that are both, but it's the intent behind it. Is your intent just to climb the ladder, or is your intent to be passionate about the kids you've been given assignment for, and the program you begin an assignment for? You definitely can do both. I celebrate ambition. I sell my coaches to I hope they all leave here and make tons of money at the Power Four. You can talk to Ryan Day. You can talk to Chip Kelly. You could talk to Kalen DeBoer, Nick Saban. I have pushed coaches to those guys, okay? I want them to climb the ladder because you know why? They're really doing it because they're passionate. So the ambition will happen. But when they come in and it's about TikTok and Instagram and recruiting rankings and what the narratives around you and all this stuff, what you're telling me is that no, you're really doing this, especially at our level, because you just want to get the hell out of here and go to somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Well, guess who you're going to run over in the process? Those kids in your room.
That's right.
Now, I got no problem with the coaches that I hire say, Coach, man, I am in. I love what you're doing. This looks awesome. I want you to know I am ambitious, but my ambition is secondary to my investment. Man, you say that? Steve Russ, my defense coordinator, Air Force defense coordinator, NFL guy the last 7 years, very successful in the NFL. He's been very upfront. Brent Wieselmeyer, you're going to get the best I have ever coached at UAB, right? And maybe one day I'll get back to the league. But it won't matter because what I'm about to give you is more than I ever give the Redskins, the Raiders, Air Force, whatever. Like, talk about in. Like, I don't have 2 feet in. I got my whole family in. I've given up everything in my life to make UAB good. That's passion. I will do anything to get these guys back to the league. Right?
That's right.
Because whoever gets them, if Nick Sirianni gets them, they're going to get a hell of a coach. Cole Peterson, who we're talking about offline. Cole's my DFO, one of the great, up for DFO of the year in college football. Unbelievable, like a son to me. I remember when the Lions thing came up, and I'm like, not a good fit, the role. The Eagles thing came up, and I'm calling everybody at the Eagles like, you got your guy. I'm telling you. Do you know how hard it is to lose a DFO late in the spring? Like, it's one of the hardest things you can lose in your building. And I'm calling the Eagles saying, you are crazy if you don't hire this guy. Because the role that you need, Nick, this guy was built for it. Like, he literally, God gave Cole Peterson to you for this exact role. So I love them. But Cole wasn't trying to leave.
Right.
Cole's bleeding out for UAB. He worked as hard as I did to make this thing good. Started with passion. Yep. Ambition was a byproduct. Elevation was a byproduct.
Well, you know, and that's the hard thing for the young coaches right now. They said, well, tell me how you got into coaching. I said, well, no one else wanted to. I mean, my first job was $100 a month at the University of Akron, and no one else applied for the GA job. You live in a different world because sport has gotten so popular. Compensation has gotten so extraordinary. Of course, more people are going to look for popular, well-compensated opportunities. So there's going to be thousands of people trying for those GA jobs. I mean, they're like, so you're going to have to differentiate yourself because there's a whole bunch of people that want the spoils from what sport has become. Mm-hmm. And you better figure out which ones have the passion for working with young people and making a difference in their lives and playing with that, making sure they play with that passion, because there's going to be a lot of people applying.
Yeah.
But
And
there's still a very, very few who are good enough.
And so many, Coach, and I'm not trying to sound like the old get off my lawn guy, but it's true. It's part of society too. People have lost the gift of loving the hard stuff. Like, what good has ever come in your life, Coach, that was just easy?
Right.
Like right now it's fun. I love those moments when life is easy. Oh, they're wonderful, right? But you know the good stuff comes out of the hard stuff. And there's not enough coaches that like the hard anymore. Now, I'll say this about this building. By the way, I let everybody go. I said, I'm going to do coaches pod. You guys shouldn't be in the building while I'm here. I guarantee if I walk down the hallway, there's going to be 9 to 13 guys still here. They know it's Friday, Memorial Day weekend. They're not back till Wednesday. They could have been out of here a long time ago, right? You'd normally hear the wheels screeching. But I've built a building where no, that's cool, Coach, thank you, but I haven't finished this drawing. I got to get this programmed. I got to make sure I check with this portal player, make sure his rooming's set up. I got to make sure onboarding here is going. I can walk down this hallway right now, and I got 9 to 11 still in the building, and they were released an hour and 15 minutes ago because now they like the hard stuff. They're like, the more hard stuff we can do, the more fruit we'll get later.
Well, and that's the group you need.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more pro team. Did you have Mike Nolan?
I did.
Okay, I don't know Mike at all, so tell me what
a
you
good
learned
man.
from him. I admired him, but don't know him.
Yeah, really, really good man. Again, was put in a tough situation, was taking over the Niners in kind of a rebuild. And I'll say this, Bryant Young, who's one of my best friends and a Hall of Famer who was on that team, he liked Mike too. Me and him were like the two old veterans on the team at that point. We really had a lot of respect for Mike. Mike, man of character and self-discipline. That's what Mike took care of himself. He expected everybody to take care of themselves. He believed we should start in the weight room as coaches. We should take the lead of making sure we are healthy, body, soul, mind, so that our best is given to the players. And I will say this, we weren't successful, but those coaches coached their tails off. Jim Tomasula was on that staff. Norv Turner was on that staff. Norv Turner, by the way, I count Norv as one of the head coaches. I learned so much from Norv. But that staff gave us their best. We got their best. We weren't very good, but we got their best. Now, one person in that building is like, oh, that coach is lazy, or I'm not getting that. Pete Hayner, who's a legendary coach. Pete working Pete first of the office, working out, presentation's perfect, XO perfect, answer for all short yards, goal line plays. You never once did you go to the office and be like, hey, this is wrong, or this drawing's not right, or we don't have an answer here. We had answers. We always had the answers. We just weren't very good. But giving your players your best means you better be taking care of yourself, right? You can't be the guy drinking and smoking late at night in the office because you're not going to be the best the next day. You should probably get a little walking or a jogging or a treadmill, or if you're super old, an arm bike, but something so you've sweated out, and your mind's right. When those players enter the building, meet them with energy, meet them with enthusiasm, meet them with answers. NFL players want answers. We don't really care about a lot of the other stuff. Give me an answer and make sure it's the right answer, right? That staff, Mike Nolan did a great job at that, demanding from his staff that we are always going to give our players the best stuff. And I really liked him, man. It just didn't work out well. He became a really good position coach in the league. Man, he was a good man, and I thought he did a really good job handling the circumstances he had.
So tell me how you built such a good team so quickly at Lipscomb.
Oh, gosh. Well, one, it was so bad. And I sometimes get uncomfortable telling the story because it's a poor reflect. The school was just really struggling. So let's just start there. The institution itself was kind of in the dust. They had lost their way. A lot of different factors to this. Sports was kind of they couldn't decide, do they want to be a female school at the arts? Do they want to be a both? What do they want to do? They're down 78 in their admissions goal. It was just a bad situation. The head of school, Greg Glenn, wonderful man, could kind of see it, and he's like, okay, we need a front porch. Like, we need an identity. And I think it started there, was he saw my vision for I said no to it like for 3 weeks, and then finally felt called to do it. And I think what he liked was I had a vision for the school, not just the team. And as the team grew, the school would change. Yep. And I think it came down to, I'm going to use some vague terms here. I think it came down to grit. It had become an entitled place, right? So it lacked grit, passion, and perseverance towards a long-time goal. It lacked vision. What do we want to become, right? And too many people are like, oh, that's too hard to get there. Stop complaining was a core value. I said it a little more harshly than that, but quit whining, Like, quit worrying about all the things you can't control. Here's what we can control. I think opening up the demographic that could get in. That Nashville private schools, it can get pretty pigeonholed here. And saying, okay, hey, let's give more kids an opportunity. Now, if they don't make it, that's on them. But let's give them a chance to get in the front door.
Prop 48.
Right? Prop 48. I literally took a lot from Prop 48.
Right. Yep.
So a whole new demographic coming in. Resourcing. Like I heard Matt Rule say it a couple months ago, who I think is a great coach too. Wow, he's a good coach. He said, now guys, there's a lot of cool things in coaching. A lot of this stuff matters, but at the end of the day, resources win. Like you gotta be in the arms race. Right. And we weren't in it. So we raised $1.1 million in 91 days. They had raised $111,000 in 10 years. So, and that route, now people have a stake in it, right? So you're kind of putting yourself out there too, because if you waste these people money, you ain't going to be there very long. But at the end of the day, I think we did, we taught accountability to the campus.
To the whole school.
Whole school. Yeah. We taught empathy. Being around people you've never been around before and actually putting yourself in their shoes.
Yep.
And then, not done this, just toughness. Just straight what happened to old school country toughness. Mental and physical toughness. I'll say this, we were talented. We had a bunch of guys go play. But when we weren't good, when I was building that thing and we had guys that were running out of bounds before I got there so they wouldn't tackle a guy, all of a sudden they're getting their helmet across. All of a sudden they're running their feet. All of a sudden they're punching. We're finishing. Let's not forget that this is a game of violence. And you got to be able to teach young people to be safe, but be violent playing it. And that takes a certain mindset and makeup. And that's what we did, was we just started teaching a mindset that permeated through the whole school, and everybody took pride in that mindset.
And it sounds like they finally had someone who believed they could.
Yeah.
Believed they could be tough. Believed they could, have the grit. Believed they could compete. And that's so critical. How many years were you there?
Four. Yeah, it's 30. The best part of the story is, and God did so many cool things. When I took the job, my first day in the weight room, it was December at some point. It might have been early January. There were 36 kids on the varsity football team. 6 of them couldn't lift the bar, so they were lifting with a PVC pipe. The year before, they were running out of bounds. They gave 400 yards rushing in the first half to their rival, and they were running out of bounds so they wouldn't tackle. We ended up beating that rival. I'm going to get the scores off a little bit here, but like 185-17 the last 4 times we played them. We won 2 straight championships, won a bunch of games consecutively, and it was talent. Like, there's a lot of talent that was infused into that program, but there was a mindset of that, not just our players, but that school that really turned it. And I will only give myself credit for one thing. I did come in and say, you guys, we can do this. Like, I believe we can do this. And the parents thought I was from another world. They thought I was an alien. Why are you lying? They can't. I used to do this all the time. Don't sell false hope. And I would sit down with the parents like, no, you don't understand. They can. Let me give you the roadmap. I'm not selling false hope. I can see where we're going. We will get there. And I still have moms to this day, because now there's kids, some of them are graduating from college already, or they're in college. Like one of them's playing the SEC baseball tournament down the street today. And those moms and dads will still hit me. Thank you for loving and believing in my son. Thank you for believing in them more than they believed in themselves. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And whether it was a great player or an average player or a bad player, it didn't matter. We had this one kid, I'm not going to use his name to embarrass him, he was the worst player in the program. I don't think he ever played. He was a sophomore the year I left. Scout team player. So soft when we got there, like just really you'd almost hear him whimper when contact came. By the end, he was named Scout Team Player of the Year and toughest guy on the football team. Like that was the growth we saw.
I've always felt timing of when you go to a place is critical. Talent, you got to develop talent. We can get the whiteboard out all we want, but we got to get some talent, and then you got to have belief.
Yeah.
And I know when we went to Youngstown State, the timing was good, because it was about 8 years after what they called in Youngstown Black Monday, which was when 42,000 jobs left in one day, closed down the steel mills. And so they were looking for something. So the timing was good. The football between Ohio and Pennsylvania for 1AA, plenty of talent if you go out and get it.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the one thing, just as you're saying, you better get them to believe they can.
Yeah.
And once they believe they can, you'd be amazed if you're there at the right time, surrounding yourself with the right talent. If you can get them to believe, you got a chance. But one last thing. Go ahead.
Let me say one thing, that I do have time for one more, then I got to run. Dr. Michael Gervais, he's one of the world's leader in human performance. He taught me this years ago, and it goes to what you're saying. Confidence is actually trainable. And a lot of people go, no, you can train confidence. And you train it by doing hard things. Starts there. You have to take on challenges while speaking well to yourself, so self-talk, and others speaking well to you. And so often I'll see a kid that's doing something hard. He's trying to speak well to himself and train himself confidence, but the coach is hijacking the whole process by not speaking and believing in them. But when a coach believes in a player, and a player is willing to do hard things and train himself to say, I got this. This is not too big for me. I'm a giant. Nothing can break me. I was built for this. I'll fix this. I'll figure it out. Whatever it is, whatever the self-talk is, we have a responsibility to believe that process which is going on is going to develop the secret sauce of winning, which is confidence.
Yep, no question. So last one for you. Last question, because you've done great things on the field, great things as a coach with the whistle and all that. But the stuff you've done with foundations and making a difference with your blessing, as you've talked earlier in our time together, of to whom much is given, much is expected. So give us real quickly here, because I know you have to go, how you've built a team around the foundations and the causes to make a difference.
So what our family believes in it, we're given very good counsel before I ever received a bunch of money of, part of responsibility of riches is to give a large portion away. So we just believe that as a family. We've done it individually through our foundations. We'll go to our grave. I have a goal, actually. I have a goal to where I can get to giving 90% of my income away. So that's kind of a goal I'm working on. But what we try to teach the players is living for something bigger than themselves and service. So our team here in my 2.5 years has served over 4,300 hours in the 99, which is the 99 neighborhoods of Birmingham, not the over the mountain suburbs, but the actual Birmingham, the 99 neighborhoods. But within that, we've donated tens of thousands of dollars through our foundation into the 99 to help our players. For instance, our players make hundreds of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before they come in for team meals on Friday nights before the game. They can't eat team meal until they've made five or six peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Well, that goes to Food for Our Journey, which is a ministry in downtown Birmingham that goes and feeds the homeless. So, but then they'll actually go and serve the homeless. They'll actually go be part of these projects as well. So we really want them to see a life that's bigger than them, because unfortunately the society we're growing up in, everybody thinks they're the master of their universe. Mm-hmm. And me and you both know life is better lived when it's lived for something bigger than you.
Yep. Yeah, that's special. Hey, this has been fun. I know I kept you too long.
Oh, it's the best, Coach.
Nothing more fun than trying to figure out how to build a team and how to do something that is bigger than yourself.
Yep.
So, well, we'll be watching you, man. Get after it, and make sure you keep Logan Tressel coached up there. And his great-great-grandpa is in the College Hall of Fame, and so tell him he's got to live up to that.
Amen. I'm going to grind his gears. You know that, Coach.
All right, man.
All right,
thanks so much.
buddy.
God bless you. See ya.
God bless you, buddy. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.